So without further ado, I think we'll kick things off with tonight's speaker. If we give him a big round of applause, please.
Hi everyone. Oh wow, okay, let me start that again. Hello everyone. Hello. Hi. My name is Michael Tabaradi, and today I'm going to be talking about how to be productive in an increasingly distracted world. That sounds like a really big statement, but bear with me, I'll go through it and you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is me. This is actually on a boat with Stephanie, so my girlfriend over here. I think it was our 3rd anniversary. So yes, I surprised her for our anniversary and took her on a boat and stuff, which is really nice. So what I'm going to be doing today is defining productivity, okay? Really what it is and what it isn't. Also talking about the history of productivity, so that's really from an economic point of view and how the world has really changed when it comes to productivity. I'm also going to be talking about how productivity relates to you as an individual, and I'm also going to be going through 30 different things you can use in order to be more productive in your life. And lastly, I'm going to be talking about some simple tools that you can use to increase your productivity. So, as I said before, my name is Michael Tabaradi. I study a BSc of Medical Biochemistry at Leicester. I'm actually an author and speaker, so I'm an author of 3 different books, so here's one of them here. Understand, Reach, Expand, 15 Super Effective Ways to Manage Your Mind. I'm also a commissioner for the NHS. And effectively what a commissioner is somebody who actually assesses a health need within a population, and then when they decide what needs to be done within that specific population, they sort of like advertise this sort of service towards these different healthcare providers. We choose who's like the best fit for this service, and then afterwards we contract management, we develop their contracts, and we performance manage them as well. So managing both my job within the NHS and also doing the speaking, the coaching and everything else, I've had to be quite efficient and productive in what I do. So hopefully I can shed some light in how I do this. So what is productivity? If we were to define productivity, what would we say? Any volunteers? I'm sure you have some ideas.
Being productive in day-to-day tasks at work, I suppose.
Okay, let's try not to use productive in the definition.
Being efficient with your time.
Being efficient with your time, okay, that's one definition, that's good. Any others?
Doing everything that you plan to do.
Doing everything that you plan to do. One more. Go ahead.
I was just thinking just moving in your business, keeping it going.
Keeping it going, okay. So all of these definitions really say something about what we think productivity is about. But for me personally, I like to go back to the dictionary just to see what it actually says, okay? So if we go back to the old French productif, or the Latin productivus, sorry, I'm not really good with my Latin, it really means to bring forth, okay? And when you see the English definitions, you'll see these different definitions. So producing or able to produce large amounts of goods, crops, or other commodities. Very agricultural based. We've also got relating to or engaged in the production of goods, crops, or other commodities. We have achieving a significant amount or results. And we have producing or giving rise to. So the big theme here is production. It comes down to production. It comes down to outcomes. It comes down to results. But when we define some of the definitions for productivity, we were talking about efficiency, doing things in a short amount of time, or at least we think those things when we come to thinking about productivity in the 21st century. Now, where does productivity fit into our history? Now, what I'm going to be doing is talking through different points in time where productivity has changed the way we see the world. So the first ever sort of to-do list that was ever recorded to our working knowledge was from Benjamin Franklin. So he was one of the 4 founders of the United States of America. And essentially, this to-do list looks like this. So on the left-hand side, he asked the question. The morning question would be, what good should I do today? And obviously, you can see in the middle, he has the hours and different things that he was aiming to do. So this was the first form of productivity that we had seen. So moving on from that, within the early 1900s, we had the first sort of like diaries developed. And this really came into play because of changes that happened within the world. So we had World War I, World War II, X, Y, and Z. So we all know that the Industrial Revolution came about in 1790 to about 1914 or thereabouts. And that really was sort of like the progression and production of automation. So using energy and steam to really get things done and moving away from human labor. Then we also had the development of cars. So who knows Toyota here? Anyone know? You know Toyota? Good. We know Henry Ford? Perfect. So these guys were responsible for producing Ford cars and Toyota cars today. And what they did was incept the first sort of lean methodology that we use today when it comes to project management. So many of you would have heard of Lean Six Sigma, okay? So Lean Six Sigma is really focusing on how can I reduce waste and how can I do this in a way where I can solve problems. And it focuses on eliminating 8 different points of waste. We also had World War I and II, where people had to think really innovative when it came to developing machinery and weapons, because whoever had the biggest guns or systems were the ones who were going to win. After that, we had the Bretton Woods Conference. Who's heard of the Bretton Woods Conference? Okay, one person here, she's biased. So basically, the Bretton Woods Conference was where 44 different countries met together in order to basically stop war, okay, so establish some sort of peace, but also think of a way to sort of like trade more effectively. And this is where they use the US dollar to actually trade between different countries. I'm saying this because this obviously encouraged globalization, this encouraged people to think a bit more differently, and this encouraged people to work against the clock, especially if somebody was working in Australia and somebody else was working in the UK, for example. So it started to change the way we thought as human beings. We also had more women working within the workplace. So as the war started in World War II, World War I, more and more women were working in the factories rather than just stereotypically staying at home. So again, productivity principles needed to be put in place. Then we had the boom of the food industry. So we all know McDonald's, okay? McDonald's, I think, was first concepted in the 1940s with the McDonald's brothers. And then Ray Kroc came along, the genius that he was, and developed the first franchise in 1955. And wherever you go across the world, you will see that a McDonald's is pretty much the same way. Like, it's the same system, the same sort of model, the same procedures, and there's a reason they do this. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. I've got this slide here because I just really wanted to show that as there was a rise in the food industry, so there was a rise in obesity. The reason I'm saying this is because sometimes we think about productivity when really we're thinking about ways to avoid doing work, okay? We have a lazy mentality. So there was also the birth of Microsoft. So we all know Bill Gates, and he revolutionized the way we sort of like see the world when it came to the computer. And then in 1991, HTTPS was actually introduced. So that was the first time the internet had open source software that allowed everyone to surf the internet. And again, this saw opportunity to discover new things and to really sort of create new stuff as well. And we have Google, we have the iPhone, and we have other sort of devices. So you get the picture, okay? And this is just an example of what that looks like, how many times it's changed. Since 2007, actually. It's only 12 years ago. It's crazy. So how does this relate to you? Now, again, why do we want to be more productive as individuals? Raise your hands.
Sorry, why?
Yeah, why do you... Oh, I said raise your hands and you just went like this.
Sorry. No,
I love that.
Don't get work.
No problem.
I want to stick to 9 to 5, so I want to look up to him what I'm trying to pursue, like dreams and always ambitious. That's in a nutshell, really. I hate that.
Fair dues. So wanting to avoid what you're living at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, any other reasons? Go ahead.
I want to make sure I'm providing value to my clients and not getting distracted
I like
things that aren't necessarily high value.
Okay, so you want to provide value. Okay, any other reasons?
I'm extremely ambitious.
Extremely ambitious. And in order for you to be or achieve the things you want to achieve, you need to have productivity in your life. That's exactly true. You know, I've got some examples here, but yes, it echoes basically what you guys have just said. We want more. Some of us want more in life, and we may not be able to explain it, but there's this inner drive and desire to want to just do more, be more, and have more, okay? Some of us want to make more money. I think that's all of us, really. Money improves accessibility, it opens more opportunities, and it allows us to see things that we may not have seen before. It allows you to serve your dreams, okay? So you spoke about, providing more value to your clients because hopefully, or maybe in your mind, that means something else for you. There's also the fear of death, and it sounds weird, but it feels like sometimes we don't have enough time to do things and, something could happen and tomorrow we're gone. So we want to be as efficient and productive as possible to make sure that we can actually do the things we say we want to do. And that links to, obviously, a lack of time as well, especially when you were talking about, your 9 to 5 and wanting to escape from that. There's also online and social media. So sometimes we may scroll through Instagram and we're like, oh my gosh, this person has an amazing body. I need to do this, that, X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you think somebody's doing amazing in their business. So there's perception that allows us to want to be more productive as well. There's environmental and social pressures. So there may be things that are happening at home. Maybe there are situations where you feel like it's inescapable and you feel like the only way you can sort of achieve X dream is if you're more productive, whatever that may mean. So you need to decide what it is for you. Why do you want to be more productive in your life? We've already spoken about what the definition of productivity is, but you need to define what productivity actually means for you and why you want to be more productive in your life. Now here I'm going to talk about 30 different things you can start today in order to be more productive. Now, a lot of these things won't be sort of like rocket science, but it follows, I would like to think, a logical sequence of events in order for you to improve your productivity. So number one, the first thing you need to do is to determine what you want in life, okay? We go through different experiences, we've seen different things, but if we actually record and understand and are aligned to the things that we want in our life, then we're more likely going to be able to do those things. Because again, if you don't have an inner desire, if you don't have an inner passion, then you're unlikely going to do those things. The second thing you need to do, if you don't know what you want, is to work out what you don't want, okay? Sometimes that's a clue to understand what it is you need to be working towards. So for example, I like stability. I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have money. So I don't ever want to not have money. I know that's something I don't want. Okay, so think about for yourself what it is that you don't want. And maybe you want to write this down in your journal or diary or whatever it is. Then you need to determine why you want that thing, okay? So it starts off with the what. This is going to be frustrating, this is fine. It starts off with the what, but you need to also determine the why, okay? Okay, are we here? We all here? Engagement? We're kind of quiet today, but it's okay.
Sorry for being late.
No problem, no problem. So we need to determine why we want this specific thing in our lives. Now, once you know the reason, what you want, what you don't want, and why you want it, I would then challenge you to actually do an audit of your calendar, okay? So I would do a 2-week audit to see what you do every single day to understand what sort of themes pop up, okay? So who actually uses their calendar? Good, I'm happy to see that. It means you're all sort of in the right sort of pattern of thinking. Actually check over a span of 2 weeks and see exactly what you do, because then you can say, okay, I know what I want, I know what I don't want, I know why I want it, so why am I doing this on Tuesday and doing this on a Friday? You need to be able to strategically eliminate those things so you can start developing a plan and focusing on the stuff that you do want to do. Ooh, why is that happening? Perfect. So then there's also compromise. Sometimes we're in this sort of mentality where like, yeah, I can do this, it's going to be easy, we have this willpower and everything else, but there is a level of compromise that you have to put in place in order for you to actually start doing those things that you said you want to do. This all does link into productivity, by the way. I'm getting to a point. but you need to start with the grassroots first before you can get to start using the tools and everything else. Once you've done all of that stuff, research what failure and success looks like. And the way you do this is quite simple. This comes down to reading, going to events, checking out what people are saying on YouTube, for example, speaking to people who have actually engaged in those different activities, so you get a better idea of what success looks like, but also what failure looks like, so you know what to avoid. And once you've done that, then you need to develop a goal, okay? You need to develop your goal after you've done this information, this research finding, sorry. And the way you do that is by developing, at least, as an example, SMARTER objectives. So I'm sure you've all heard of SMARTER. You can tell me what SMARTER stands for. Okay. Time, yep. So it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, environment-friendly, and risk-adverse, okay? So specific, rather than saying, I want to improve my health, you would say something, I would like to be 75 kg and have 12% body fat. That is specific. You can't sort of run away from that because it's measurable. When it comes to measure, again, I would measure that by standing on the scales every single week and recording my progress. I would measure my sort of waist to see if it's getting thinner or fatter, as an example. Achievable. Well, that comes back down to looking at your audit of your calendar and really seeing, okay, does my time allocated here actually allow me to do the thing that I say I want to do, or am I just like kidding myself? Relevant is quite simple. That comes back down to your why. Okay, so is this relevant in my life right now? Time-bound really means creating some sort of pressure to allow you to do that thing. So if I'm looking, let's say for example, I was 85 kilograms, I was looking to be 75 kilograms. Am I going to give myself 3 months to do that, or am I going to give myself 6 months to do that? There has to be some sort of pressure to enable you to actually do those things. Environment friendly. This is I would say, quite important in the sense that you need to think about what do you need to put in place to make sure that you do those things. So do you have a partner that prevents you from doing what you want to do, or a sibling or a parent or whatever it is? Do you have a workspace, a dedicated table or space where you can actually fulfill these tasks? So think about your environment and think about how you can improve it to actually get those things done. And risk adverse, what are the risks that could get in the way? What is the sort of interference that could stop you from achieving your specific goals? Does that make sense?
Yeah, a question around
Go
that.
ahead.
So like, what if some things are inherently have high risk?
Like what? Give me an example.
I guess when I'm reading this book about how women are risk adverse,
Mhm.
and that in order for them to succeed, they need to go after more risks. They need to jump out in there. They need to kind of do more and let go of their fear of failure. So I'm trying to understand how that, like, where you balance that, or does that play into the context of goals?
That's a very good question. I think it comes down to how you perceive and define your level of risk. That's what it really is. Because your risk and my risk may be different.
Yeah.
Or the risk that you see for a specific goal may not necessarily count in terms of the risk that somebody else may be saying. So you have to look at your goal first, think about what it is that you're actually trying to do, and then define what risk looks like. And if you don't really see it as a foreseeable risk, then it's not really a risk, is it?
Yeah.
So, all clear? Good stuff. Any questions on this? Good stuff. Then you need to develop a plan of attack. Okay? So this is dependent upon the type of thing that you're actually trying to achieve. So if it's just a project, I would produce a step-by-step sort of plan or process-driven set of actions that I need to fulfill in order to achieve that goal. And I say this is because it produces a level of accountability. Okay, let's say for example you don't have a coach or a mentor or anything else. That plan there, that set of actions, those steps will enable you to be accountable to what it is that you actually have to do. And if you decide sort of like or discover further down the line that something has changed, then change it. But you need to stick to that plan in that time frame. Okay? Yes, to-do list. Who has a to-do list here?
Many.
Okay. Who uses it religiously? Who thinks it helps?
It does help.
It does help, doesn't it?
It's not too long and it has like 3 things on it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So when do you actually complete your to-do list?
Don't ever complete.
Sorry, when do you actually write down your to-do list, should I say?
The day before I'm gonna do it.
Is that for most people? Some people are like, yes, no,
It's just ongoing, isn't it?
it's just ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing. Every day you change it, every day you reprioritise,
Mhm.
every day you add to it, every day you tick stuff off.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing list.
Do you always complete what's on your to-do list?
Well, you complete some of it, don't you? But then the next day it will roll over and then you reprioritise what's more important. Some things you might never ever complete.
Okay. Should that be on the list then? If you never complete it?
Well, you might bump it, mightn't you? You might take it off the list. It's up to you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. There's no hard rules here. There's no hard rules. But there are things that people do say when it comes to to-do lists. So what I personally do...
Might
Okay, I'm not,
delegate it.
sorry?
Delegate it.
Oh yeah,
I'll
exactly.
do it.
Delegate it. If it's not working, delegate it out to somebody else. So what I personally do is I write my list before I go to sleep, okay? And then I review it in the morning and refine it if I need to refine it. Just because, I don't know, something magical happens in my dreams and, I can then, better refine it.
Manifest your list.
Yeah, it's the last thing you thought about and the first thing you think about. So that's how I do it. And I try, like, the first time I ever did a to-do list, I used to put loads of items on it, 10 plus items, and then I realized it wasn't really working out. And I'd probably get like 3 to 5 items done each time. So then I ended up focusing on just doing 3 to 5 items each day, okay? And I measured my progress by basically ticking off what I completed and then giving myself a percentage at the end of the week. And I'd roughly get anywhere between, let's say, 60 to 80% of my stuff done. So it meant to me that I needed to maybe reduce what was on my list and make sure I focus on actually completing the things, rather than just putting it down thinking, oh yes, I've put it on my to-do list, so this means it's going to get done. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get done. I haven't positioned myself to get it done, okay? That's just one step closer to potentially getting it done.
Oh.
Go ahead.
So how do you, I guess, would it be helpful to kind of, separate to-dos with goals? You know what I mean? Because it's like sometimes
Yeah.
you put your goals on your to-do list, and then it's never really achievable until you, I guess, break it down or something.
I would separate it. So I would have the goal, and then I would think about, let's say, 3 to 5 objectives for that goal, which is slightly different. They're just basically chunks from that goal, and then I would create the list from that instead. It depends what you're doing. So if it's an ongoing thing, you may have to do, let's say, for example, a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly sort of like list of things to do or things to check or review. Or if it's more project-based, i.e. you have to do it at the end of a specific period of time, then I would have more of a checklist or to-do list day by day, as an example. Does that make sense? Cool. You're very quiet.
They're thinking.
Oh, good. Well, at least you're thinking, at least.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've talked about refining your to-do list. Avoid multitasking. Who's a multitasker? It's terrible. It's really bad. I think I can take on so much, but really and truly, it's a lie. You got a question? Only in the kitchen?
Only in the kitchen.
Explain that to me, sorry.
You have to multitask if you want to things get done quicker. I mean, when you wait for something to boil up or whatever, I can still do the dishes and it's done when I'm done. My kitchen is clean and I'm done with the dishes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not as versed as you in the kitchen, but only in the kitchen. But yes, apart from the kitchen, avoid multitasking because you just don't have the right level of energy or effort focused on a specific task. The only real time where I feel like I've actually achieved something was when I finished writing this book. I focused, followed one course until successful. I didn't do anything else. I was almost like a hermit. I'm not saying you should be a hermit, but what I am saying is there's a certain level of obsessiveness and aggressiveness that you need to apply when you're actually trying to achieve a specific goal. But if you're trying to do everything, your energy is spread thin, and you can't narrow in your focus on making sure that you actually achieve your specific goals. You may achieve it, but to what level of quality? Okay? So I would avoid multitasking as best as possible, okay? And I guess the best way to avoid multitasking is just to be realistic and honest with yourself. Can I actually do all of these things? Or do I need to drop something? And sometimes we don't like dropping anything because we feel like we've missed an opportunity. But at the end of the day, that's what sacrifice is there for. Like, we have to sacrifice things at times to then focus on the things that we truly want to do in our lives. Make sense? Okay. Who believes in this? Who doesn't believe in this?
Absolutely believe in it,
Yeah? I'd say focus on your strengths. Why waste your time with weaknesses? As the lady said here, if you've got something that you're not good at, delegate it or just don't do it, okay? Because we have strengths for a reason, and in my opinion, they're supposed to be utilized. Now, there is this, many of you may know this sort of like tool. It's known as the Johari window. And basically, this is where an individual chooses 56 or 57 meta-emotions or characteristics that they think relate to them. So they may choose 5 to 10 of these different characteristics. Then what that person may do is, let's say to 5 friends or family members, say, hey, out of this list, what strengths do you think I possess? Okay, and they'll choose that. And then after that exercise is done, you can see sort of where you marry up in terms of those meta-emotions. And that will enable you to understand what potential strengths that you may have if you didn't know that already. Okay, so that's one exercise you can do. You can check that out on Google. So I say focus on your strengths because, again, when it comes back to talking about understanding what you want and then multiplying that with your strengths, you're more driven. You're just naturally more driven. Why would you want to do something if you're not good at it or if you don't want to do it? It just doesn't make sense. You're just sort of like dragging your foot, so to speak, because you think it's the best thing to do, but really and truly, you should be focusing on your strengths and what you want to do. Who's heard of the Eisenhower matrix? 1 person, 2, 3. Good. Explain it to us.
I guess there's like 4 quadrants.
Yes.
Obviously, that we need to prioritize very differently as well. So this is where you can basically split your to-do list and allocate it or delegate it into the relevant quadrants for yourself.
Perfect. Perfect. So the Eisenhower matrix really, as described, talks about how important and how urgent something is. Okay? So if, let's say, for example, something is important and urgent, you know you need to get that done. Okay? If something is urgent, again, you can question whether you need to get that done, but yeah, most likely you do need to get that done. If it's important, it's not as, I don't want to use the word urgent. What should I use? It's not a priority. It's not as much of a priority as the urgent thing. And if it's not important and if it's not urgent, then leave it alone. Get someone else to do it. Okay? So sometimes we talk about delegation, but sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we talk like we're a CEO, we can just delegate someone else to do it. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes you just need to leave it alone until it's possible for you to delegate. Does that make sense? If you can't measure it, don't do it. Okay? There are some things that are qualitative in nature which you can measure. It just takes time to measure that thing. So my philosophy is, if I can't measure something, I'm not going to do it. What enabled me to finish this book was to sort of calculate how many words I wanted to complete. So it's a small book. It's roughly about 18,000 words. So I knew I needed to complete X amount of words every single day in order to get to my goal. Simple maths. So you need to apply simple maths when it comes to actually accomplishing your specific goals, okay? Whether that's in your personal life, business life, or whatever it is. Oh, it's doing that thing again. Create a minimalistic environment. Who has a minimalistic environment at home? Yes, I'm the same. That's why I raised my hand. Okay? So really, what this means is, don't create a distracting environment. Okay, I don't know where you sort of like do your passion or your work or whatever it is, but it needs to be organized and clean so you have a clean state of mind. Who believes in the fact that if you have a messy room, you have a messy mind? There's a weirdness about it, okay? Even if you don't want to accept it, you probably don't want to accept it because you don't want to clean your room, but really and truly, it's the truth. If your environment is messy, there's something about that that distracts your thinking. So try as much as possible to create a minimalistic environment. It doesn't have to be sort of like Apple fresh in terms of Apple, in terms of minimalism. It just means keep it clean and tidy, okay? So it removes you from any sort of distractions. Now, who likes to listen to music when they're doing their work? Okay, some people don't. Some people don't. But what I will say is, don't choose something that's going to distract you, okay? Don't choose something that's going to make you dance, unless that's your hobby or your goal that you're trying to achieve, okay? Choose something that's going to slow down your heart rate, okay? And get you into the state of mind of actually doing work. So for me, what I like to do is I like to listen to nature sounds, okay? I don't actually go to Richmond Park and sit down and, do my work. But this is ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous if somebody was listening to this from, let's say, 1700s. I'll go into YouTube and type in nature sounds, literally. And it would come up with a suggested playlist, and I'd listen to it, and it would just calm me. It will just calm me, and it will get me into the rhythm of actually doing what it is that I'm actually set out to do. So choose the right level of playlist, the right music, so you're at the right level of tempo when it comes to doing your work. Now, social media is a huge distraction. Okay, I'm sure some of us have been on social media here since we've been here, but you need to find ways to actually prevent social media from running your life. It states that we pick up our phone every 3 minutes. It's crazy. I would like time yourself just to see if you actually do that. But who has Instagram here? Who has Facebook? Who has Twitter? But you haven't. So everyone has a level of social media here. Who thinks they actually need it though? What do you need it for?
My business.
It's your business.
Run a Facebook advertising agency.
Okay, so that's different. That's different. So for Facebook advertising, if you're using it for business purposes, that's a different story. But who thinks they need it for the other reasons? Go ahead.
I'm getting advice on my renovation project, and I thought helping me up with a lot of anxiety by just putting it out there.
Okay, so it's helping you in that way. Do you think social media distracts you at all though? It definitely does. How does it distract you?
Because I want to engage with what people are saying. Just keep looking at it.
Okay.
Just riddle with advertisement, which is meant to be distracting anyway.
Yes.
That's all by its nature. It has to be distracting. It has to get your attention.
That's the whole point of it. That's why they're there. But I guess the way I'm seeing it is the amount of time you spend on social media, you could utilize that time for something else, even if it was for social, okay? Because I do believe socializing is a good way to relax and sort of connect with friends, family, or whoever it is. So I'm not saying don't use social media, I'm saying minimize it. And the ways you minimize it is be strategic with what's on your phone. So for example, what I do is I've got my social media scattered in different boxes on my phone because I'm lazy and I'm like, it's not on the front page. So I'm less likely to go into that app, okay? What I've also done is I've taken off notifications for some social media sort of platforms. So again, I don't get distracted. There are some plugins and Chrome extensions that you can use that can prevent you from, let's say, seeing adverts on Facebook as an example, or prevent you from going on social media for X amount of time. So you have to be innovative in how you reduce your social media intake, because what it is it's a form of mind control, really and truly, whether we believe it or not. Because you start telling yourself this story. You start telling yourself that you're not good enough because this person looks like this, or I haven't got this because this person has got that. They say a picture tells 1,000 words or 1,000 stories, but that to me means that serves no purpose because there are way too many stories. You can't really define it. So find ways to sort of minimize and filter your social media. Okay. Who has an accountability buddy?
Define one.
Define one. Well, I want to know who has one first. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. How did you get your accountability buddy?
Well, we're in business together.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So how do you keep yourselves accountable?
Well, I suppose we talk to each other all the time about what we're doing,
Mhm.
and I'm always telling Cynthia what I'm planning on doing, and whether or not I've done it. Yeah, and she's a good sounding board. We set goals together. Yeah, sometimes.
Good, good. So yeah, I think if you don't have, let's say, a mentor or some sort of course or whatever it is, an accountability buddy, is the basic thing you should have. Okay, so I have an accountability buddy. I meet with them every week/2 weeks. And what we usually do is when we sit down together, we spend 2 to 3 hours, okay, so that's dedicated time of really going through our goals. And we do this against a Google Sheets document, okay? So in the first column, we have goals. Second column, we have the objective of that goal. Then we have tasks. Then we have comments. So I may be saying what I'm saying. They'll be typing the comments and then asking me questions, almost like a coach, just to see what I've done and how I've overcome certain things, X, Y, and Z. And then there's 2 more columns where we rate sort of like the level of effort when it came to achieving that specific goal. And then the last column is lessons learned. Okay, so what was the lesson learned when you're actually trying to sort of like fulfill this specific task? And we've done this for about 2 years. And I tell you, it's been a great way to really reflect and, as you said, have a sounding board in terms of whether I'm actually true to the cause, whether I'm actually committing to the actual cause. So if you don't have an accountability buddy, I'll definitely find one. I wouldn't have an accountability buddy who's too familiar with you, okay? Because then there's a level of objectivity that they may not have. It needs to be someone who's serious. They don't have to have the same goals as you, but they need to have the same level of drive when it comes to achieving a specific goal, okay? So if that does end up being, let's say, a cousin or sort of like a distant friend, that's a good shout. If it's somebody from a networking event, that you met and you just sort of like got on, then again, that's a great opportunity. But I would definitely, if you don't have one, set it as a task to actually develop that sort of relationship with somebody and make them your accountability partner. So the other thing I have is a mastermind group. Has anyone been part of a mastermind before? Perfect. How's your experience being in a mastermind?
Yeah, for me, fundamental part of my business, to be honest, very good. Just speak with other really successful business people, and like different people find success in different ways, you see, so you can kind of tap into different ways people think in their businesses.
Exactly. It's just that. It's an opportunity to really sort of like not only express and get answers for what it is that you're trying to find out, but also learn from other people as well. Okay. Exactly. Yeah, it definitely does that. It's inspiring to see what other people are doing. And it makes you feel and think to yourself, if they can do it, I can definitely do it, okay? This all links to productivity because if you have a system of motivation in place, i.e., let's say the accountability partner, the mastermind groups, and everything else that I spoke about, you're more likely going to do things. As opposed to like, I'm going to do this and then get disheartened and stop, and then it's going to take 90 days before you try it again. You don't want to do that. You want to keep on going so you can actually see results, measure results, and then use those results to define what it is you need to do going forward. So I would set up a mastermind group if you're not part of one already, okay? Find, let's say, a minimum of 3 other people, okay, that are ambitious or serve similar goals to you, and just meet every single month, okay? And talk about what it is that you're actually aiming to do. Learn from those people as well. It's not difficult to do. So I would definitely sort of like get into the habit of being part of a mastermind. Who has a mentor? Do you think you need a mentor? you need one. I'm kind of like here and there. I don't think you need one, but I think one is sensible to have. That's the difference. Sorry, you're going to say?
It's important to have one when you're first starting out.
Yes.
What you do, what you're trying to work towards.
Exactly.
Yeah, I recently got one this year, so I'm loving meeting up once a month. What we do, what I'm doing, and stuff, it gives me more motivation to try to take action on what I'm doing. So, yeah, I'm glad I found one.
Good. I'm happy for you, man. I think a mentor is crucial, but you don't need one. Okay, willpower is good, but it's not enough. And a mentor can give you that extra dimension when it comes to actually achieving that goal. Okay, so there's a difference between people who just learn from YouTube and those who actually have a real mentor who's been in the game for 10, 15, 20 years and actually done the results.
Is there a difference between a mentor and an accountability buddy?
Yes. So an accountability buddy may have mentor-like qualities, but a mentor's place is, well, a mentor is basically someone who has more experience, okay? They've done it, they've been in the field, they can give you knowledge and experience that you haven't had before, and you're learning from that person. It's not that you're not doing that from the accountability buddy, but there's a bigger separation when it comes to that. And you're less likely going to have a mentor as an accountability buddy anyway, because the scales are unbalanced. There needs to be a balance in scales when it comes to accountability buddies. Okay?
What about, like, if there isn't a specific mentor for what you are trying to achieve, like having kind of like multiple mentors for different aspects of things?
I think that's a good shout. Why not? Maximize your life, you know? You could have a mentor for your finances, mentor for your business, mentor for relationships. I don't know, like it's endless. I think Tony Robbins has 7 different mentors. That's Tony Robbins, so what excuse do we have, you know? So yeah, the more mentors, the better, I guess, in that sense, because it accelerates the process of learning and it accelerates the process of experience that you have as an individual.
I feel like sometimes your mentors teach you.
They can.
Sometimes you just kind of grow.
And I think that's a good thing, because it shows a level of growth, okay? If we're not growing as people, then we're dying. It's that simple. And I guess if we're talking about the difference between a mentor and a coach is slightly different, okay? So a coach uses more active listening and effective questioning to allow you to answer the questions that was inside you already. Whereas a mentor may have coach-like qualities, but really and truly they can say what they want in different situations.
So you can give you advice. And you come to that conclusion yourself knowing.
Exactly. You know, why waste your time? I say this, but I don't really mean it. Why waste your time, you know, being asked 15 different questions when you can say it in one sentence? You know? So that's what a mentor can do for you. Any other questions or things you want to say about mentorship?
What's the best way to find a mentor?
That's a good question. I don't think there's a hard written rule. I think in some industries, you have to pay for a mentor just because of the nature of that industry. Other times it comes down to networking, but really and truly, if you're in an environment where you see this mentor, you have to be able to, one, have some value that they can sort of like adopt, and 2, have the confidence to approach them and say, hey, I really admire what it is that you do. I wanted to know if we could meet up for a coffee and X, Y, and Z, okay? So it starts with that initial sort of like dialogue with that person. But there's no hard written rule. You just have to sort of like decide who it is that you want to be your mentor, and then try to work out how they think as an individual so you can present value to them straight away. So the next one, keep appropriate people in your life. Who knows what this means? Who wants to elaborate on this?
Keep the negative Nancy going.
To keep the negative what, sorry? Nancy's, I like that, okay. What else does this mean to people?
And isn't it made us think that you are the average of the 5 people you keep closest to you?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. So, you know, I'm never shy to cut people out of my life if I need to. I don't hesitate. But recently I had this epiphany where I was like, well, if I'm grey and old in my 90s, I'm going to have no friends, okay? So I had to really sort of define what this actually meant, and that's why I said appropriate people. I'm not necessarily saying get rid of people. What I am saying is learn who actually provides value for you in your life. And value is defined by how people make you feel, or how people support you, or how people provide benefits when it comes to your specific goals, okay? So once you define those people, you want to hang out with them a bit more, because naturally you're going to level up, and you're slowly going to move away from those people who sort of like bring you down, okay? We all have those haters in our lives, you know, we have to be cognizant of who they are, but keep the appropriate ones close to you. That's the most important thing. So I'm not saying cut people off, I'm saying have appropriate people in your life. Now, the first time I did this, choose specific days for social, was back in 2016 when I was writing these books. And I was like, how am I actually going to do this? Like, I naturally like to go out and meet friends and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, I really want to write this book. So I decided that I was only going to meet people on Thursdays and Saturdays. Seriously, no, I'm not even joking. That's exactly what I did. So, you know, there was a time when my friend was like, I was like to him, when can we meet up? And he's like, oh, I'm usually free on Wednesdays. Oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. I'm usually free on Wednesdays. And I said to him, sorry, I'm not free. I can only meet on Thursdays and Saturdays. So it took about 5 months before I met that person. But it was okay because I stuck to my principles. And you can't imagine how much work you get done when you know that you have 2 days dedicated to social, okay? So maybe you don't want to do that, but I know it worked for me, okay? So pick at least, say that again?
You're really tough on yourself.
You know, when it comes to wanting to achieve a goal, okay, and I read this in this book called Psycho-Cybernetics, it said something like, you need to be aggressive when it comes to your goal, okay? You can't achieve a goal sort of like dandy fairy, light and airy. You can't do it that way. You need to be aggressive. This is why productivity is important, so you can actually produce the outcomes that you want to achieve. Otherwise, it's just a figment of your imagination or a feeling that you have. You know, feelings are good for making decisions and stuff, but it needs to be tangible, okay? You need to be serious about what it is that you want to achieve. So yes, pick days to socialize, pick days to do work, so you can actually be productive and do your work. Go ahead.
How do you balance that if, like, business meetings are kind of social, or, you know, but you still need production days? So then it's like, are business meetings also on Thursdays and Saturdays, and that includes also?
You have to define that for yourself. So for me, it was literally, unless it was something business related, I'm not going to socialize. So it couldn't relate to anything outside of just socializing. Does that make sense? So if it was just meeting up with a friend, just to catch up, if it's not on a Thursday or Saturday, I'm not doing it. However, if it was, let's say, a networking event where there was a specific cause, or I had a business meeting, I'm okay because it's part of like my principle, it's part of my rules. So that's fine. But you need to define like quite succinctly what that means for you. It can't be a great...
Networking events, you can't do all of them.
You can't. Maybe you want to say you only network on Thursdays and Saturdays, you know? Maybe that's the case, okay? So define that for you, okay? Because again, that comes back down to looking at your calendar, looking at what you want, what you don't want, and why you want it. And then you can start looking at this in a bit more detail. So you can start seeing why I started with that stuff first, and I'm dragging out this stuff. Yeah? Make it hard. Make it hard, okay? Because, I don't know, like, there's this level of, what's this word? If you make it hard for people to reach you, I don't want to say there's a level of respect, but there's a level of, I don't want to disturb that person because I know they're doing this, or, you know, they're busy or whatever it is. Make people believe that you're busy, even if you're not busy, because you need time to think as human beings anyway, okay? So if let's say for example, it depends what type of business you have, but let's say for example, you have a contact me page. Do you want your email address there? Or do you want something else in order for you to be notified of messages? How are you sort of like controlling that communication pathway? So don't make it completely easy for people to contact you. Make it hard for them, because if anyone contacts you, then you're not going to be focusing on your work. You know, I'm culprit for helping people because I like helping people, okay? That's my biggest weakness. And Stephanie over here would be like, you need to stop doing that, because it's not a good use of your time. And I'm like, no, but you know, it's I'm gaining experience, and you know, I like helping this person, X, Y, and Z, but I'm not respecting my time, am I, really? You know, when I know I've got other things I could be doing. I'm serving that other person's dream, okay? So make it hard for people to reach you. Maybe what you want to do is activate blocking mode on your phone, if you've got that facility. So I activate it at, I think, 7 o'clock. So only, like, I think 4 people can access me. And that's about it. If anyone calls me at that time, I'm not going to pick up. It's just going to go straight to answer phone, okay? Maybe you want to put your phone in airplane mode if you don't have blocking mode. Just think of innovative ways in which people can not contact you. Oh, I need to sort this out. Okay. Also, I think it's important to make sure you dedicate time for learning. Okay? So for some people, depending on their situations, the only time they have to learn is on public transport. Okay? That may be the reality. Okay? So if that is the case, you need to have in mind that, okay, as soon as I get on the bus 72, I'm going to be reading this book, okay, for an hour, because you know you're going to be on the bus for an hour. No phone calls, no Instagram, none of that rubbish, just reading, okay? Maybe it's before you get to work. Maybe you need to study for an exam because you don't have time during the day because you're working. You know you need to dedicate 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock to study, okay? So think about specific set times to learn. If it's for your business, don't just assume that things are always going to be the way it's going to be. We live in a tech-savvy world. So you need to be learning what are the best and innovative ways to actually survive as a business. So learn those different things, but do it in dedicated time. Okay? Learn to say no. Who's a no person? I believe that. Who's a yes person? So most of us are yes persons.
I'm changing that.
Change it, change it.
I am fully, especially after what you just said.
Yeah, no, many of us are yes people because for me it comes down to a deeper belief of connection and wanting to be seen as valuable, okay? We want to please people because it makes us look good, you know, it makes us look really cool. But you have to learn to say no, because if you don't say no, then you don't have time for yourself. It's not selfish to think about yourself. It's not selfish. It's better to look out for yourself first before you look out for anybody else. So practice the art of saying no. Even if it means you look at the mirror and you say no 50 times so you get it in your head, then do that, okay? Learn to say no. And it's not, you don't have to explain yourself if you say no. You don't have to. Just say it. Sometimes just say no for the hell of it, okay?
So I'm reading this book on confidence for women.
Okay.
Referring to, because some of this kind of plays very differently for women in a lot of ways. In this book, they recommend to always say that you have to look at your calendar. Like even if you know you can do it or know you want to do it or meet up with somebody or like, but never say yes in the moment. Always kind of like come back and like have a reason to come back and think about how you're gonna. And messaging is easier to say no. So like an email is easier to say no rather than sometimes in person if you have a hard time saying no.
I think that's a very good point. I think because at least it gives you the opportunity to think about it.
Yeah.
My style's very aggressive.
Yeah.
I know it is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to stereotype and just say that's only valid for women.
Right.
I think it's valid for whoever, really.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is, don't say yes. Just don't say yes straight away.
Yeah, don't say yes.
5-10 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Sometimes I do the same. It's like a client calls me in the middle of the day and say, okay, it's like I say the same. I have to look at my calendar. Next day morning, I figure out I have 3 other clients blocked, so I can do it in the same time in an hour. So I just go around, have a coffee, and just talk to the clients and schedule up the next week.
Exactly.
I'm doing the same as well.
Yeah, give your time. It's good that you give yourself time to do that. So I don't have much time, so I'm going to whiz through these, okay, very quickly. So stop being reactive and be proactive, okay? Perfect example, rather than just sort of like reacting to emails straight away, dedicate time during the day to respond to your emails. Simple as. This should apply at work as well, okay? Don't be firefighting. Develop time to think and reflect. Dedicate time to generate ideas, okay? Generate time to just sit down with your... well, let's see how quickly I can do this. Okay, generate some time to think and reflect, okay? And generate, just for the hell of it, okay? Just to sort of like churn those creative faculties in your mind. Incorporate real rest, okay? Sometimes it sounds a bit counterintuitive to actually rest when it comes to productivity, but really and truly, you need to have time to rest so you can actually do the things that you need to do. So maybe you do this on a quarterly basis, okay? Maybe you do this on a monthly basis. Whatever it is, spend time to actually rest. For me, I like to rest when it comes to chilling with friends. Like on Saturday, I went to play rounders with my friends. And we had a picnic in the park, we played card games, it was cool, you know? It was a great time to just reflect and rest.
Just power something here, just say
right there. That's okay.
Sure.
I think I should be done soon. Okay. And the last thing here is to look after your body. Okay. So what I did last year was I wanted to know what I was intolerant to. So I went to a nutritionist and they told me I was intolerant to all these different things. And I realized dairy made me sluggish, moody, I needed to go to the toilet, all these different things. Everything that is counterproductive. So then I got a meal plan from this nutritionist, followed that meal plan, and I'd say probably 3 or 4 weeks in, I felt energized. I lost weight. My body fat was low. All these things helped me feel more energized. And why do we need energy? To do things. And especially to do things that we enjoy doing, making us more productive, okay? So really think about your sleep, your food, and exercise. Now, quick resources. So, someone say something? Oh, okay. Quick resources. These are basic things that I think you need to be more productive. It's not much really. Your mobile calendar, okay? So when you're meeting somebody, actually add their email address to that calendar invite with the location and some notes just to really sort of summarize why you're meeting, okay? So mobile calendars really work for me. Google Drive is key for me in everything that I do, okay? I can use that mobile-wise, tablet-wise, laptop-wise. I also utilize timers and alarms, okay? So there's this principle that states that if you, let's say, usually spend an hour to do something, half it and do it in half an hour, because that will get you focusing and actually achieving that specific goal, okay? Who has a diary here? Yeah, use your diary, okay?
The diary being different to the mobile calendar?
Not really, but I guess with this diary, for me, what I usually used to do is I used to put my to-do list in there. That's what I would use my diary.
You see, I see that's very different. I see you've got tasks that are time specific. So if I had a meeting with you, that would go in the diary because that's time specific, and things that aren't time specific don't belong in the diary.
Fair dues. That's the way you use it. Different ways. But I would use it just for my tick list. I also use Trello. So who's heard of Trello before? Trello is fantastic. It's a great project management tool. It's even a great sort of like to-do list tool. It allows you to categorize things, invite people to stuff, X, Y, and Z. I'll definitely check out Trello. I think its equivalent is Asana as well. And yes, I've spoken about using a journal, and I've spoken about other people when it comes to mentorship and X, Y, and Z. I'm going to flick through these. These were just examples. And this is Trello, by the way. This is what it looks like. This is an example. If you want to take a picture, you can. Okay. So to summarize, productivity is simply the production of things, okay? So from an economic point of view, productivity is aimed to make our lives easier. So your productivity relates to your level of pain or desire, as we stated before. And defining clear goals and introducing focus-driven habits is what will truly actually improve your productivity. And again, with those resources there are different aids and guides to help you with your productivity. And that's pretty much my presentation. Thank you very much.